probably already using some DevOps capabilities, some DevOps practices in your teams. And as you mature your processes and tools, you start to look for means to streamline your software delivery workflow, such as improving your coding productivity, having better means to do code reviews, or to operate applications at scale. Today in this session, we'll talk about how to use artificial intelligence and machine learning into that software delivery workflow from the moment you write the code of your applications to when you operate them in production. My name is Rafael Ramos. I'm a specialist solutions architect on the developer acceleration team on AWS.
I'm Shivan Singh. I'm a principal partner solution architect.
Hi, I'm Jared Reimer. I'm the founder and president of Cascadeo. We're an APN Premier Tier partner and managed services provider. I'm going to share some customer stories with these tools.
Cool. This is our plan for today. We start with a quick recap about the software delivery lifecycle as it is as of today, and some of the challenges we face when developing software. Then we'll talk about artificial intelligence for DevOps in different areas, such as when you're writing code, when you're doing code reviews, when you're assessing the performance of your applications in runtime, and also when you're monitoring your applications and cloud resources. We are also going to have a live demo, and Jared from Cascadeo is going to talk about his own journey and how his team is operating applications at scale in production. All right, this is a typical software delivery lifecycle as of today, right? So usually when you're practicing DevOps, you have something similar to that, and usually you have it automated as a CI/CD pipeline, so that when the developer writes code in their local environment, some peer might do some peering review, and then this developer would push the code into the Git repo, into their repository, the main line, and then a pipeline would kick it off to build the application and test it, and then deploy it in your various environments, and then you start to observe those applications so that you can keep improving them by fixing bugs, enhancing the performance, or implementing new features. But there are some things we are doing manually here in this whole process that prevents us to be as agile. For example, when you are writing the code of your applications, it's very common that you manually search online for code snippets of a corner case that you're implementing, or maybe a programming language that you're not very familiar with. When you're doing code reviews, also usually you do that manually, looking for bugs or inefficient code in your applications. Another thing that we usually do manually is looking for performance bottlenecks into our applications running in production. You also have to monitor those applications so that you have means to troubleshoot them when an incident occurs. That involves collecting metrics, defining thresholds, creating alarms, dashboards, and so on. From all those improvement opportunities, let's start talking from the beginning, which is when you're actually writing the code of your applications. A big challenge most of us as developers face today is dealing with multiple programming languages. In one of the projects I worked for as a developer, we had to refactor one of our main systems and adopt a microservices-based architecture. And we wanted to use the right tool for the right job there, right? That's what we always strive for. So some of those microservices we decided to implement in Python, whereas others we implemented in JavaScript running on Node.js. But for most of my career, over a decade, I was a Java developer. And at that point, I had to deal with those multiple programming languages. That was part of my daily life. And if there are other Java developers here, I think you would relate to that, because many times, when I would implement something in Python, I would then search online for, hey, what is the Pythonic way to do that? For instance, what's the Pythonic way to apply a function to all the items in a function? All the items in a list. And another challenge we have is dealing with multiple frameworks and libraries. It could be that you're not very knowledgeable about some of those frameworks or those libraries and you have to use to build your applications. But it could also be that you struggle to remember certain features, like a familiar lib that you use on a daily basis, maybe because you're actually implementing a corner case. And there is also a number of third-party APIs and cloud services that we have to use to build our applications. Like, you may be using Amazon DynamoDB to store and retrieve data. Or it could also be that if your application is using streams, you are using DOP205 and Python to interact with Amazon Kinesis. Searching for this all the time is time-consuming. So why not having a buddy that would help you with code recommendations to increase your productivity? That's where Amazon CodeWhisperer comes into play. This service is a machine learning-powered coding companion that we just announced this year in preview. And the idea of CodeWhisperer is to improve your development productivity by generating code recommendations based on the existing code you've got in your IDE and the comments you write in plain English. CodeWhisperer is powered by a machine learning model that we trained on billions of lines of code, and the model would generate code similar to how you would write it on your own. It's not a simple copy-paste from the web. And the benefit of that is that you get ready-to-use code that is already customized for you based on your context. CodeWhisperer understands natural language. It means that you write in plain English what you want to do, and it generates entire blocks of code like function implementations. In this case you see on the picture, I wrote, hey, write a function to upload a file to S3. And it generated all those lines at once with the implementation I needed. This is how CodeWhisperer works. You install it as a plugin in your IDE and activate it. Then, as you create new code or write comments in plain English using natural language, CodeWhisperer then sends to the back end your edits, being the code you just created or the comments you wrote. And it also sends some contextual information to the back end, like the libs you have imported on that specific file, and also the versions that you're using, and some of the existing code you've got there. On the back end, then, CodeWhisperer takes all that in consideration to generate those coding recommendations based on your context and based on your intent. In terms of programming languages, we already support Java, JavaScript, and Python, and we just announced support for C# and TypeScript. As far as IDEs, we already support VS Code, also the JetBrains family, including PyCharm, IntelliJ, WebStorm. We also support AWS Cloud9, and you can also benefit from CodeWhisperer directly from the AWS Lambda console if you're editing code from there. CodeWhisperer also comes with a reference tracker so that you have transparency about where exactly that code came from. The way the reference tracker works is once it detects that a piece of code recommendation CodeWhisperer is about to give you is similar to training data that we use to train our model, it will provide you with that reference. With that reference tracker, then, the idea of that is you get informed about whether you can make informed decisions whether you feel comfortable or not using code from that specific origin on that license. CodeWhisperer also comes with a security scan that's powered by Amazon CodeGuru, which we're going to talk in a bit. And the idea of that is in the IDE itself, you can get informed about possible security vulnerabilities you may have in your code. And this is how your workflow would look like with CodeWhisperer acting as your AI-based coding companion. Switching gears now, let's talk about how to improve the quality of your code and the performance of your applications. Traditionally, code reviews may happen in the local environment of the developer, and that's where everything works, right, in your local environment. Or it can also happen somewhere between the build and test stages during the pipeline execution. But it's very common, especially if you're using a feature branch approach, that your releases get blocked waiting for peer code reviews. Even though necessary, code reviews are also time-consuming, especially for less experienced developers. And even if you are a more tenured developer, it's not easy to catch certain defects, like data corruption, thread concurrency, resource leaks, and so on. Keeping consistency of those code reviews is also a challenge because some folks are ultra careful, whereas others, maybe because of time constraints, they would just take a quick look. Another challenge when doing code reviews is to find performance bottlenecks in applications. And ideally, you want to evaluate the performance of your applications as early as possible in the development lifecycle, because it can reduce the customer escalations you may have, but also potentially reduce the overall operational costs. To help you with those challenges, Amazon CodeGuru comes into play. CodeGuru is yet another ML-based static code analysis tool that's tailored for Java and Python. It helps to improve the quality of your code by identifying hard-to-find defects as well as critical security issues. Because of the way CodeGuru's machine learning model works, it just doesn't point you to the defects or to the possible improvement opportunities you may have there. It also gives you intelligent recommendations about how you can fix those issues. CodeGuru comes with two different functionalities. The first one is called CodeGuru Reviewer, and in a nutshell, CodeGuru Reviewer is a functionality that gives you automated code reviews and static code analysis. And here are some of the areas that CodeGuru can help you with. It helps to follow AWS best practices and also some anti-patterns to avoid. It also covers correct implementation of concurrency constructs and resource handling. And there is also a number of security issues that CodeGuru can help you with, like sensitive information leaks or common web application breaches. CodeGuru Profiler is the second functionality of CodeGuru, and what it does is to evaluate the performance of your applications in runtime to identify the most expensive lines of code. Those functionalities are applied in different stages of your software delivery workflow. The CodeGuru Profiler is applied when your application is already deployed and running on your compute instances, and CodeGuru Reviewer is applied on the left side of the software delivery lifecycle. It can be applied directly, you can use that directly on your IDE when you're developing code. You can also integrate it as part of your pull request. You can also automate it as part of your CI/CD pipeline. The way it works is when the developer pushes code to the Git repository, in this case here, GitHub, GitHub Actions will pick it up, build the artifact, and then upload to an S3 bucket the artifact along with your source code. And it's also going to invoke the CodeGuru service so that it can scan the code and the artifacts looking for defects and security vulnerabilities. CodeGuru then provides you with recommendations in case there are any, and the developers can access those recommendations from the CodeGuru console or also as comments on the pull request. This is how your workflow would look like, with CodeGuru Reviewer helping you with code analysis and CodeGuru Profiler helping you to identify the most expensive lines of code. Before jumping to our next topic, let's have a demo showing how CodeWhisperer works. Hope you can see back there. All right, before this session started, I bootstrapped in my AWS account a serverless application. And what I want this application to do is to get an image, and from that image, identify the labels on that, meaning which objects are on that image. And everything in this application happens asynchronously, so it's based also on Lambda functions. And the users, they can interact with this application in two different ways. There is an API endpoint where they can list the existing images, the images that we processed, and for each image, which labels we found. And also, there is an endpoint where the users can provide the image they want to process. And the bulk of this implementation happens here on the code of this Lambda function that I have here. What I'll do to implement it, I'm going to use Amazon Recognition to detect the labels. I already initialized this one by importing some libraries, and also I initialized some variables here. I'm getting also here the event that comes from SQS, from Amazon SQS. And from this event, I get the bucket name and the key, meaning where the image that I want to process is stored. And now I'm going to use CodeWhisperer to implement this functionality. using natural language, I'm just going to type detect labels on image using recognition. That's how I'm telling CodeWhisperer what I want. When I type def here, CodeWhisperer understands that what I want to do is a function implementation, and it gives me some suggestions. If I navigate using the left and right arrows here, I can see the different suggestions it's giving me. In the case of the second one, as you can see here, it says reference code under MIT. It means that CodeWhisperer identified that piece of code is similar to the training data we use to train the model. If I click here, I would see more details about that, like the license of the repo again and which repo this code came from. And then you decide, I'm good with using this code or not. Let me come back here. I'm actually going to take this one here. I'll hit tab to accept it. And this is what it does. It's using recognition, Amazon recognition, and it's detecting the labels here on from the image that's stored on this location. All right. I will then create a variable here called labels. And I'm going to detect labels. I'm going to invoke the method that I just created, the function I just created. The next thing I want to do is to store the results of this on Amazon DynamoDB so that I can retrieve later, right? The users using one of those endpoints can retrieve. I would simply type save recog labels to DynamoDB. Def again. Yeah, here are the method implementations. If I navigate, in this case, there are multiple here, but I'll stick with this first one here. I'm just going to tweak a little bit. I'm going to call it DynamoDB, and I'm going to call this index as image. CodeWhisperer kind of guessed what I wanted to do, so it already transformed the labels in string so that I can store on DynamoDB. And what I'll do, instead of storing all the labels, the whole labels object, I want just the names of each of those labels. So I'll type here get label names. In this case here, CodeWhisperer is obviously not generating an entire function, but just this one-liner here doing what I want to do. It's creating a new collection containing all the names for each label in the labels collection. Now I'm going to call that save labels to DynamoDB, but I don't want the labels. I want the label names. OK, the last thing I'll do in this implementation is I don't want this event, this SQS event, to be processed multiple times. So since I already processed here, I'll delete this object from the queue. Again, some implementations here. I'll hit tab to accept this one. I'm going to call that function delete message. Yes, so I have already the implementation I think I need. So I'm detecting the labels using Amazon recognition. I'm storing the results on DynamoDB. I'm deleting the message from SQS to avoid duplication in processing of that. I'm going to do something here that you shouldn't do in production. I'm going to copy this one and paste here on the Lambda console directly. Again, don't do that. Use CI/CD pipelines instead. And I'm going to deploy my function here. OK, the new code that CodeWhisperer created for me is deployed. And to test it, I'm going to use this image here. Yes, we have dogs. So this is Keith, my best friend who passed early this year. and I'm going to use his image to test it. As I said, there are two different endpoints here. This first one, would list all the objects I've got, all the images that I previously processed, and for each image, the labels. The system should be empty here. Yes, it's returning an empty array. Now I'm going to invoke the other endpoint, and from here, I'm passing Keith's image and also the name that I want to give to this image. I'm going to hit enter, and it's sending the image to be processed. Now I'm going to call that again, and the image is here, Keith, and this is the labels of that Amazon recognition recognized. Pug is here, no dog, pug, yeah, I'm not sure why it thinks my dog is a lion, but anyway. So, yeah, that's it. That's how CodeWhisperer can help you to increase your productivity so that you can stay focused on your IDE and implement whatever functionality you need. Before jumping to, now I hand over to Shivansh, who's going to talk about our next topic. Shivansh, you can take over. The clicker is here. Oh, sorry. Yeah, push here, take.
All right, so let's take a look at the software development lifecycle again. Now, in this software development lifecycle, as we saw previously, now you have all your code written in whatever your preferred language is, and hopefully it has already been reviewed both by Amazon CodeGuru Reviewer as well as some of your peers. Now you are ready to deploy your code in some of the different environments, like end-to-end environment, integration testing environment, some other pre-prod environments, and eventually to production environment. Now, it's critically important to make sure that your code does not have any bottlenecks before it goes into production. You also want to make sure that if it has any issues, you want to catch it in those pre-production environments before it goes into production and start impacting your customers. So having a good observability for your application and the resources on which your application is being deployed is equally important. Now, raise your hand, how many of you are actually an application operations engineer, or you have been in the past, or a DevOps engineer? Yeah? Yeah. There are several hands raised here, including myself, where I was working previously as an application operations engineer, and there are quite a number of challenges as you might have faced yourself in those different roles. So let's take a look at some of those challenges and how machine learning-based service can actually help you. So one of the biggest challenge is the large volume of data which is coming from the disparate sources. You had to worry about all these volumes of metrics and logs coming across from different variety of applications. It could be distributed applications, it could be microservices, or you have multiple components of your application which are deployed across different resources. So collecting all that information from all these applications is a huge pain because of this disparate information which is available across the different resources. Additionally, as the data is spread across resources, associating that data to the correct resource or the current issue which is going on is actually an important challenge as well. The data association becomes very difficult when you have your application which is distributed, and when you are having an issue, being able to correlate which data belongs to which application and correlate those different logs and metrics together is a big challenge. And if that was not enough, as the application continued to update throughout its life cycle, you have to make sure that your application monitoring and the infrastructure monitoring is being updated as well. And you have to make sure that you are keeping up to date with those applications. And if you are introducing any new infrastructure resources, then you have to ensure that those new infrastructure resources are also being monitored. Therefore, it's a constant challenge to keep up the monitoring up to date with respect to the application and the infrastructure updates. Now raise your hand, how many of you think that there's too many alarms and notifications you receive? Yeah? Yeah, I think it's part of life as application operations engineer, right? There are too many tools available. There are too many number of alarms you have set up just to cover all the bases of your application so that you can monitor and you don't miss anything. Now this causes alarm fatigue and an inability to identify what matters the most. Alarms and notifications from multiple tools can cause alarm fatigue and your inability to actually differentiate between the root cause and the side effects. So that needs to reduce the noise, bring to surface the most critical issue that matters the most, and help you identify the root cause quickly to reduce the MTTR is what Amazon DevOps Guru seeks to deliver. Amazon DevOps Guru is a fully managed machine learning powered service that monitors your application automatically and improve the availability and reduce the downtime. So how can you get started with Amazon DevOps Guru? There are a couple of ways you can do. You have to define an application boundary for your application so that Amazon DevOps Guru can start collecting logs and metrics and show it together in a single dashboard. And you can do it either using tags or you can define application boundary using AWS CloudFormation stack. And if you want, you can also enable Amazon DevOps Guru to your entire AWS account so that it starts collecting logs and metrics for all the resources you have deployed in your AWS account. Optionally, you can also connect Amazon DevOps Guru to an SNS topic, or you can use EventBridge to communicate any insights to you. You can filter these insights by CloudFormation stack, or you can do it through any AWS services as well. Now let's look at how DevOps Guru work behind the scenes. Now in this diagram, this is an architecture of a serverless application. You have Amazon API Gateway that invokes a Lambda function to process the business logic. And then you have a DynamoDB table where you're storing the data of your application. After it's deployed, hopefully you have deployed it using CloudFormation stack, and the next thing you have to do is define the application boundary for Amazon DevOps Guru. So let's say that someone accidentally updates the DynamoDB table to reduce its read capacity. At the same time, there is a surge in application traffic. Eventually, your DynamoDB table will be throttled because it cannot keep up with the new number of read requests coming from the users. So in this hypothetical scenario, the admin or the operator would see all three components failing. The DynamoDB will be throttled, the Lambda function would have failed executions, and the API gateway endpoint would respond with 500 HTTP errors. To resolve this issue, the application or admin or the operator would need to understand the root cause of the issue and what the side effects are. In this case, even though the Lambda function and the API gateway endpoint are both failing, they are just the side effects. The root cause is the DynamoDB table. And after the operator has resolved the incident, they have to spend times on postmortem to identify that the read capacity of the DynamoDB table was the root cause. This can take several hours or even days to get to the root cause. This is where DevOps Guru can help you with machine learning-based anomaly detectors. It monitors your application by ingesting operational data coming from Amazon CloudWatch and CloudTrail. In this example, DevOps Guru checks the relevant event on CloudTrail and compares them with the operational metrics from CloudWatch. Based on this data, when it detects anomaly, it creates an insight, which presents the relevant metrics so the operator can quickly find what was the root cause of the incident. Taking it a step further, DevOps Guru can actually identify that someone has changed the DynamoDB table read capacity just before the anomaly was detected and recommend rolling back that particular change. So it is not only pinpointing the root cause, but it is also providing you a recommendation to how to fix that issue. So there you have it. Amazon DevOps Guru, which is a fully machine learning-based service that helps you increase the availability of your application and reduce the downtime. It continuously analyzes the stream of disparate data and monitor relevant metrics to establish normal operating patterns. So putting all the services into context of the entire development lifecycle, you have Amazon CodeWhisperer, which helps you write code right into the IDE. You have Amazon CodeGuru Reviewer to help you with the static code analysis and find the most expensive lines of code. And for observability, you have Amazon DevOps Guru and Amazon CodeGuru Profiler, which can help you observe your application at runtime and provide you with recommendations how to fix those issues. Amazon DevOps Guru does not only show you the reactive insights, but it also gives you proactive insights before the issue has occurred so that you can reduce the downtime of your application and catch it early on before it starts impacting your customer experience. Now let me hand it over to Jared, who's going to talk about how they are using Amazon DevOps Guru in production. Jared?
Thank you. So my name is Jared Reimer. I'm the founder and president of Cascadeo. We have operations in Seattle and Manila. Ooh, wow, that'll wake you up. Customer quote from many years ago, and it really stuck with me. So I've always worked in critical infrastructure operations dating back to the bulletin board and dial-up ISP era all the way up to today. And the quote, at first seems a little bit odd. He said, we stopped hiring firefighters because in the end, some of them became arsonists. And I said, wait a minute. I was the firefighter. I was the one who always would get up at 2 in the morning, fix the problem. I'd come into the office exhausted. I'd get a pat on the back. Good job. You saved the day. I was perversely rewarded and incentivized for perpetuating things that were fundamentally broken because I would just come in and fix them. And in the early days of operations, that was how the world worked, right? There really wasn't a better answer. We had monitoring systems that looked for faults. They looked for thresholds to be exceeded. When a threshold got exceeded, the disk was too full or the processor too busy. Someone would get paged. Someone would try to figure it out and go in there and correct it. And it turns out that is entirely the wrong way to operate infrastructure in this day and age. Now, you may have legacy systems that you still have to operate that way. We would suggest that you modernize them. But for systems going forward, for things that are cloud platform native, for things that are built the right way on AWS platform services, there's a completely different way of doing this that does not involve firefighting. That's what we're going to talk about today. So who are we? Cascadeo, as I mentioned, is a premier tier partner to AWS. We have been for a very long time. We also have a strategic collaboration agreement where we're developing our labor force and our customer base together with Amazon. They've been a fantastic partner and instrumental in the growth of the company we started 16 years ago. We're a managed services provider. That's a huge part of our business. By this, I mean we operate other people's poorly implemented cloud deployments. Usually we inherit things that were done incorrectly, like lift and shift, move all the VMs and get them to boot up. And we try to help customers iteratively improve and make decisions about where to invest. So do you invest in modernization? Do you invest in deprecation, like getting rid of it? Do you leave it behind and not move it to the cloud? So lift and shift, just to be clear, is the last resort, not the first resort. You heard it here first, because many of the other companies in our field do that as a kind of quick and easy way to get the customer into the cloud without really thinking through what the downstream ramifications of that are going to be. I'm particularly proud of the fact that we made it into the Gartner Magic Quadrant for public cloud IT transformation services 2 years in a row. So this is a new Magic Quadrant that Gartner put out. And we're a relatively small firm. Most of the other firms that are in that Magic Quadrant are orders of magnitude larger than we are. And the reason that we qualified really is because we focus on transformation. Okay, so we focus on helping companies build net new or refactor or modernize around AWS instead of just moving VMs and hosting. Our company, as I mentioned, was based in Seattle. We have an awesome delivery org in Manila. It turns out the Philippines has some fantastic computer science departments. And so a huge percentage of our professional services and managed services teams are in the Philippines. I guess the last thing I'd say, our major client, Globe Telecom, which is the largest telco in the Philippines, became our major investor 2 years ago. So they are by far the largest AWS customer in the Philippines. By a mile. They're an enormous consumer of all sorts of AWS services. We were brought in to help them with that because of our delivery capabilities there, and now they are our majority investor. So fantastic, cool company, about 90 million subscribers, so roughly Verizon scale. Okay, so what do we talk about transformation strategy? This should be hopefully obvious to everyone in the room, because it seems like a lot of you have developer and operations backgrounds. First and most important, you want to build cloud net new and net native, right? You don't want to just lift and shift VMs. That's the last resort. You don't want to do it with every application because you can't afford to. It takes too much time and too much money. You can't afford to fix everything all at once. Sometimes it's not worth fixing. If there's a legacy app that's running just fine, maybe it's better to just leave it alone. And I know that is not a popular opinion, because a lot of people will say, oh no, you have to go all in, cloud first, cloud everything. I think that sort of misses the point. The point is to get business agility, okay? To make your business better able and equipped to deal with competitive changes, with economic changes, with disruptions, with geopolitical problems, with pandemics, with whatever happens next. So why do this? Because you get business agility. But you have to be focused about it. So our idea is we're going to work with a client to figure out what needs to be modernized, what needs to be fixed, and maybe we're going to leave a lot of it behind. At the end of the day, what really matters is the data. The infrastructure is going to become increasingly less interesting and important as we adopt platform services. And that is why the suite of tools that we just heard about is so important. Those tools are useful with legacy stuff. They are infinitely more powerful when you use them in conjunction with AWS platform services. And that's what I'm going to share with you next. So we have MSP customers that sign up. A lot of MSPs, it takes 60 days to get them onboarded. We can get them on in a single day. How do we do this? We have an API integration with DevOps Guru. If the customer consents, which they almost always do, we can click through within a matter of minutes, activate DevOps Guru, and within 24 hours, we start receiving those insights into our platform, which we call Cascadeo.io. This immediately gives our managed services team something to work with. Even if the customer has no monitoring or a bunch of legacy Nagios implementations that have been running for 10 years unattended, or they wait for someone to call and say that it's broken, we can do this in under a day, and sometimes we can do it in under an hour, because the API integrations are so tight, and literally within a matter of minutes, we can start to get results out of it. We have diverse customers of all sizes and shapes. One of them is a large water utility company. One of them does ERP systems. One of them is a giant telco. And then we ourselves, as it turned out, are also a major customer of these tools, because we develop a platform called Cascadeo.io that we use to operate other people's cloud deployments. So I'm going to show you first major enterprise customer production service incident with DevOps Guru. This is a critical authentication, authorization, and accounting system that serves a very, very large number of customers. As you can see clearly in the graph, there was a period of great instability and a period of sort of moderate instability around that. Now, normally, some threshold would get breached or some customers would scream, someone would get paged out of bed, and the typical triage process begins. It's been demonstrated over the years that 80% of most service incidents and outages, 80% is getting signed in, figuring out what's wrong, correlating the different signals, what's the root cause, what's the right course of action. 20% is remediation. So if you can cram that 80% down, if you can reduce that, you can radically reduce the amount of time that the service is impaired or down. So, DevOps Guru allows you to become almost psychic. In this case, very early on, DevOps Guru said, hey, there's something weird with your NAT gateway. For some reason, the number of active connections is anomalous. Notice it didn't say it exceeded a threshold. It didn't say it's too high or too low. It said it's different. It's different from the way that it normally behaves. But where it gets really powerful is when you start to correlate different signals so that you can dive deep and do it fast. So when you are under the gun, and many of you said you've worked in infrastructure operations, you know what that's like. People are upset, you're losing money. You have to figure out very quickly what are all the things that are broken and what are the relationships between them, and figure out what the root cause is rather than downstream symptoms. So one of the most amazing things about DevOps Guru is that it does this automatically so that the minute you sign in, you get a visual representation showing you the different services, when they were impacted, and the apparent relationships between them. You can see here that there were huge numbers of problems of various forms with an elastic load balancer, and you can also see that they tended to cluster around the same time windows. These are the kinds of things that normally a human would be doing, maybe in a post-mortem or maybe under the gun when you're trying to figure out what the heck is going on. All of this happens instantaneously. So when we have a managed services customer and there's a fault, when our operators log in, they're not kind of fumbling around in the dark because it's someone else's environment. They get this level of correlation and drill down and kind of visualization of what's going on instantaneously. You also get recommendations. So not only does it tell you what's broken, when it was broken, what it's correlated with, it actually tells you how to fix it. In many cases, it'll say, look, if you fix this problem with your ELB, that will solve the root of the issue, right? There's also guides on troubleshooting 500 errors in ELBs and latency issues in ELBs. They have run books that are built right into it. So even if you yourself don't have a run book recipe for this problem, they give you one that your engineer, your operator, or your developer can run with right out of the gate. The next thing I'm going to talk about is our own platform. This is software we have developed in-house over the last 4 or 5 years. It's a large-scale SaaS platform that our entire company runs on. It's built entirely on AWS platform tech, with the sole exception being Influx Data, which we use for very large-scale time series data analytics. So the SaaS platform for us is how we operate all of these customers, okay? Because otherwise, every customer is a one-off. We, as an experiment, turned DevOps Guru on in our production environment and instantly learned more about our application and ways that it was underperforming or suboptimal in its scaling. We got a whole list of things, and I thought, well, those can't all be right. And so we gave this to the developers. And sure enough, these were really useful insights. These are reactive insights, meaning after the fact. But what's even more amazing is that you get proactive insights. The proactive insights tell you what's going to break next. They anticipate faults like, hey, you're trending dangerously close to a threshold, or the load on this thing is creeping up. And instead of just a reactive, oh, it's broken, you actually get an alert that something is amiss, so maybe someone should take a look before it breaks. This is truly transformative. It is also how the world's most sophisticated companies operate their infrastructure. If you wonder how Netflix achieves the degree of uptime that they do, it is because of predictive analytics. It's not just monitoring, alerting, and incident response. It's because they're able to get ahead of trouble because they can predict the future based on past behavior. DevOps Guru does this for you right out of the box. All you have to do is turn it on, and you will start to get these insights. This was one that we found in our own production service platform. A lot of Lambda functions were taking too long, and we did not know this because it wasn't really broken. The app seemed to work, people weren't complaining, but sometimes it would fail in a way that was customer-facing, but not all the time. And it's hard to debug those, right? It's hard to troubleshoot and understand why it works some of the time and not all of the time. Here, right out of the gate, it shows you exactly what the issue is, what its severity is, when it started and when it stopped, and what other signals correlated with it. Our platform delivers these insights to the customer in whatever venue they want. So on the left, you can see a Zendesk ticket that goes to our operations center. That's the complete insight from DevOps Guru, where our ops team will take that and start trying to debug and troubleshoot and triage. We might have to escalate to the customer, but at least we're coming in with something instead of just, it's broken. And on the right, you can see Slack notification because we do Slack chat ops with customers who are friendly to that. We also have Teams and Office 365 for failover scenarios in case those primary systems for interfacing with customers go down. One thing that just came out that I think is really, really important, DevOps Guru now ties directly to EventBridge, which lets you do things like route these insights to Lambda functions that can fix things, or route them to something like SNS and Chatbot so that they can be delivered to Slack. And you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, you just showed me how you deliver to Slack. That is our software and our platform. What if our platform is broken? The worst thing you can do is have your monitoring system monitoring itself, because at some point that will go horribly wrong, okay? So in-band monitoring of your own system with itself will work most of the time right up until it doesn't. This allows you to create completely out of band a neutral witness that is studying the application of your infrastructure, generating these insights, and delivering them to you in whatever venue and format helps you the most. So this is production operations for Cascadeo.io SaaS. These insights come in through Slack, out of band, outside of our system, go to the ops team for triage and for escalation, and they actually provide a URL that lets you click through to drill immediately down into the remediation instructions, the correlations, all of that work. So in-band monitoring is not inherently worrying, but unsatisfactory things can and will happen. That's putting it very mildly. Don't count on your monitoring system to monitor its own health. Another thing, DevOps Guru team chose to focus on AWS platform services. They really spent a lot of time tuning this and optimizing it, not for the simple case of a single EC2 instance that's running Windows and running some old application, okay? That's useful, but it's not really the future. The integration with high-order, complex AWS services, Lambda, Dynamo, the queuing services, notification services, that is amazingly powerful, because it can be hard to troubleshoot these things when somebody else owns and operates most of the infrastructure. So we think the serverless future is bright. We are huge proponents of that. We try to get customers to adopt serverless as much as we can, and DevOps Guru is a fantastic companion to this because they've done so much work integrating those two products. So, quick summary. This is not an exaggeration. DevOps Guru has revolutionized the way we do business. It helps our professional services customers know what to do next. It helps managed services customers know what to fix, when to fix it, how to fix it, what's going to break next. It's used to monitor our own infrastructure and our own business operations. And here's the secret. It's remarkably inexpensive. It's very, very, very inexpensive for what you get out of it. So there really isn't any reason not to try it. It's out of band, it doesn't break anything, and if you don't like it, you can turn it off. But you will find, I think, it costs very, very little, and it helps immensely in every possible regard. So I would like to thank you all for hearing our story, and I'm going to hand it back for the conclusion.
All right, as Shivansh already showed, this is how your software delivery life looks like with AI/ML-based tools to streamline your DevOps capabilities. Those tools would help you with things like context-based code recommendations, detecting hard-to-find defects, and also optimizing the code. And they are even able to identify operational anomalies in your applications simply based on the way those applications behave in production. And all that comes with intelligent recommendations so that you immediately know how to act. What's next? You can get started with Amazon CodeWhisperer and sign up for the free preview as of today. Also, I would suggest that you identify a workload and enable DevOps Guru. For that, you have a free tier so that you can get a taste of what the service can also help you with and what kind of trouble it can identify. And I also suggest you to get started with Amazon CodeGuru. It also has a free tier. There is a number of sessions going on during this reInvent. For instance, tomorrow and on Thursday, there will be a builder session about CodeWhisperer so that you can get hands-on with that already. There is also a workshop tomorrow about DevOps Guru and AIOps in general so that you can also experiment and get your hands dirty with the service.